Rescue. In today's episode, we're going to answer our yesterday's guest, Helen, a 4th grade primary school teacher who doesn't know how to implement technology in her classroom in order to enhance learning. For this, another 4th grade primary school teacher, Celia Martínez, is going to explain her most recent activity based on technology use. Welcome, Celia.
Hello everyone, I am very grateful to be here today and I hope that my activity serves as a source of inspiration for Helen. First of all, let me clarify some initial details. My activity is designed for my 4th grade primary school students, so therefore for children between 9 and 10 years old. Also, as all teachers here know, when designing an activity, we must look into our country's curriculum goals that our students will achieve with the project. In this case, the educational objectives developed are the ones you see on screen. It is also important to take into account our students. In my case, I have 24 children in the classroom and within them 2 students with dyslexia and another student who is foreign and who still struggles a little bit to express himself in Spanish. Overall, I can say that I have a very artistic class and curious, and we have a great classroom environment. Now, when designing projects, Helen, AI tools can be real lifesavers for generating ideas. For this activity I did, which is about road safety, I used ChatGPT and Scamily for inspiration. With ChatGPT, I had to adjust my prompt a few times in the conversation at first. In fact, I think the ideas it suggested were too broad and complex because many activities proposed required deep involvement with the community without offering prior instruction for students on road safety rules, which I believe is the key focus in the second cycle of primary school. Actually, point 8.3 in the decree talks about internalizing the rules and not really engaging with them. However, I am going to include 2 ideas of activities that ChatGPT gave me at the end of the conversation in my assignment, which are the use of flashcards at the beginning and the use of a Kahoot at the end. Scamily also gave me the idea of using a Kahoot and even gave me some already generated questions with answers that I will use. But in terms of better privacy and data protection and rights, I chose the quizzes instead of doing a Kahoot, while keeping in mind the already generated questions by Scamily. Okay, that's interesting. I'll take that into account. But could you describe the activity more in detail as well? For sure, I'll explain it step by step while showing some videos of the activity itself. To start, I divided my students in 8 random groups of 3, making sure to put both children with dyslexia and foreign child in different groups so that they can receive the support of their classmates when reading, understanding, and writing through the activity. Then I gave a flashcard to each group with some basic rules regarding road safety. Here you have 2 of them about car safety and traffic lights. And the other ones were about crossing the road safely, rules when riding a scooter or bike, bus safety because many children take the school bus, what to do in case of an emergency or accident on the road, agents' instructions, and reducing pollution by taking the public transport or the bicycle when possible. The flashcards are written with Comic Sans font, which is considered to be good for dyslexia. Then, with the school tablets, each group made a comic on storyboard that with 3 comic strips based on the rules in their flashcard. You can see some examples of comics here. Making only 3 comic strips will help after the other students to remember better the rules at the end of the activity. Obviously, they have to create speech bubbles because it is a comic. For the foreign students and the students with dyslexia, being in a group helped them to correct some mistakes when writing. Also, The open dyslexic font was compulsory in the comics to facilitate the comic reading for the two kids with dyslexia. Afterwards, they had to print their comics background, their characters, the elements, the speech bubbles, to create a video in stop motion. You can see on the screen the example of the traffic light rules stop motion. When they finished, they uploaded the comic and the video to a classroom Padlet with a short explanation, as you can observe. So after all these steps, students already mastered the rules. So it is time to ask them to create a question for a quizzes with 4 possible answers, but just one correct. Then, as the teacher, you collect their answers and prepare the test. In this case, I included the first question also that Emily provided me. The next thing they had to do was to present their rules to the class with the Padlet. I also printed the comics and put them around the classroom walls so that they can come back to them whenever it's necessary. And finally, they individually answered the quizzes in class as a way to analyze if they understood everything and kept in mind all the important information about road safety. There were no time limits, so I encouraged my students to read the questions very carefully, and I responded to the doubts of my foreign student and the dyslexic students regarding reading comprehension. They actually did really good, and obviously for the questions worst answered, we reviewed the rules and the doubts they had together. Wow, that looks like a lot of work. But at the same time, it is great because students are being active learners, right? Exactly. Even though we did the activity in different days during an entire week, their engagement level was high as they were being active all the time. They were creators of their own comics. They recorded their own videos and wrote their own Padlet posts. They also designed their own quizzes questions and presented their work to the whole class. The final activity with the quizzes was also interactive and fun for them. Plus, the digital tools included are valuable for this type of learning. We can understand better this with the PICRAT framework as it appears on screen. In fact, there is deeper learning when students create, and as they do with most of the tools in the activity. And while a comic or a presentation could be done without a digital support, for the video, at least, a camera is needed, so it is included in transformation. With the quizzes, we replace a traditional final test with an interactive game that increases motivation. It really looks like it has all the advantages. However, I still have some doubts. How would you assess a task like this? That's another reason why I struggle to implement these tools in my class. Actually, the evaluation was not a problem at all for this task. I assessed their work with the rubric you see here to grade the assignment, not as an exam, but as part of classwork. The categories are related to the steps of the activity, to group work and behavior inside it, and to the final quizzes test. Oh, I didn't think about it that way, but that's an effective way of assessing the activity. How about the digital tools? I'm also kind of scared about privacy, data protection, and all those things. Don't worry, with the rubric for e-learning tool evaluation, I have also assessed the tools used. As you see, regarding privacy, data protection, and rights policies, they have no serious concerns, and in general, they work well in every aspect. Okay, this program is being very interesting, but we don't have much time left. Would you like to add something else, Celia? Actually, yes. I would like to project for us for a moment how ACAD framework has helped me articulate the learning design of my project in its entirety using the ACAD cards. There you go. Okay, well, that was everything, and I hope it helped, Helen. It really did. Thank you so much. Well, thank you both. To Teachers Rescue again.
Now, this is the end of our program today, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next week for more episodes into Teachers Rescue. Bye! The first theoretical conceptual knowledge I find of paramount importance is digital teaching competence. In fact, it is crucial for me as a future teacher in this digitalized world to know and develop my digital teaching competence continuously through courses, for example. Having a good digital teaching competence provides me the facility of integrating technology in the classroom with digital resources and tools in order to improve my future students' digital skills while teaching them how to make a responsible use of technology. Even assessment could be done with digital tools sometimes, like with quizzes as I implemented in the activity in part 1. I think the second area of theoretical conceptual knowledge that is crucial nowadays is STEM education. This competence is mentioned several times in the Decree 2009-2022, which establishes the organization and curriculum of primary school education in the autonomous community of the region of Murcia. Therefore, as a future teacher, it is essential that I understand what this means and how to implement it in class. For instance, we could create a school vegetable patch and encourage students to use their mathematical reasoning skills to solve problems such as measuring areas. They could also develop a scientific understanding of nature through observation and experimentation. For example, by observing how the growth of plants changes depending on the amount of water or light they receive. This would also teach them how to be more sustainable with their environment. Regarding the technological instrumental knowledge, I chose the term stop motion explained during this course. I believe that it is a really good tool for education, which can be used for many things, such as making animated comics, as I did in the activity explained previously. But the ideas of what to do with it are unlimited. We can also do tasks related to recycling, to history, while illustrating children how people lived in prehistory, for example, or even related to science. The fact that it is a visual support helps students, especially today's generations, when focusing and learning. Finally, I chose Padlet as the other technological instrumental knowledge. I also think Padlet is an amazing tool to create virtual walls where every student can publish their own work. I would use it, for instance, to create a virtual wall of the important terms of a lesson, giving each child the opportunity to provide their own definition of the concept defined the most important, adding a photo, a drawing, or other type of illustration as well. With the answers, I could verify if my explanations were accurate or if important terms have been understood, and it could be also helpful for the students to revise before a test. The three elements that I consider more relevant from the DCOMPEDU framework are reflective practice, creating and modifying digital resources, and collaborative learning. Firstly, according to DCOMPEDU, reflective practice means to reflect, assess, and develop one's digital pedagogical practice. During this course, I have done this reflective practice when being the star and reflecting on our task, when being the analyst by assessing my work and the work from my classmates, and through the creation of the activities for primary school students using digital tools. Secondly, for DCOMPEDU, creating and modifying digital resources is to create original digital educational resources or modifying existing ones to fit the specific teaching situation. For instance, an example of this course activities in which we learned this is when we did the infographic of the 10 ethical AI practices to teach students, modifying an existing template on Canva. Collaborative learning is defined by DCOMPEDU as the use of digital technologies to support and enhance collaborative learning. For example, when we did the Merge Cube activity, we learned about it and
thought about what activities to create through a conversation with the whole group, in which we all talked and worked together and therefore learned in a collaborative way. When thinking about the grade I earned, I considered different aspects, which include the effort and involvement with my team, the performance, and the digital competence development. So to start, I put in a lot of effort in every task of this subject, spending many hours working hard along with my team. I have tried to be a good classmate to work with, showing interesting motivation and engagement, as well as providing reflective and creative ideas. Though it is true that the last weeks I was stressed and a bit down, and it was difficult for me to stay motivated. I think also in general, all the work I have done individually and with my team has been reflected in the outcomes of the tasks, receiving very positive feedback from our classmates and from our professor in general. Finally, comparing my digital competence now to the one I had started with, I can say that I have improved significantly and that I am very proud of it. I know I still have a lot of things to learn, and I feel my team classmates still have more digital competence than me, but I am extremely grateful. They have helped me when needed, and I know I am going to continue to learn in the future. So taking into consideration all of this, I would say the grade I earned is a 9 out of 10 due to my high effort and involvement in most of the activities, the great performance I did individually and as a group during the tasks, especially in the one of the personal learning environments, and knowing that although I still have a lot of things to learn about digital competence, I am much better than what I was when I started. Regarding the most challenging role, I would say it is the analyst. I had to do the role in week 1 when we were very lost about the subject, the task, the roles, and everything. So having to assess my classmates was really hard, especially because despite some mistakes on the task, we all did such an amazing work, even staying after classes during hours to finish our project. To develop this exam, I have used AI tools for some things. First, when asking ideas for my task, I talked to Stemily and to ChatGPT while using my intelligence to carefully read and discard the ideas that were too difficult or irrelevant in my opinion. I finally took 2 ideas they gave me to complement the assignment I already had in mind. However, during the transcription and creation of my final exam, I also used AI tools at some points. For instance, I used ChatGPT to generate basic rules that all 4th graders should know about road safety, or to ask the time it would take to do the entire activity with 4th graders, as we haven't done practices in schools yet, so it is complicated for me to estimate aspects like the time to give for a task. I also asked it to give me ideas of criteria to evaluate in the assessment rubric, and I used DeepL in order to translate some parts and improve the transcription. All this help that AI tools gave me was verified by me and modified when needed. I discarded, for example, some of the rules in road safety that ChatGPT gave me when they were about driving cars, because 4th graders can't drive, and this would be relevant and useful for them to learn when I wanted the activity to be related to the real world. In fact, many children take the bus to school, so knowing how to act in the bus and what to do, like putting your seatbelt on, is more authentic for them and significant than driving. So here comes the end of my final exam. I hope you liked it, and thank you so much for listening.